Joining us from Indiana is David Maciotra. He is a journalist, author of the book Exurbia Now, the Battleground of American Democracy. So, David, where am I making my mistake here?
Well, thanks for having me, Bill. And I like the way you said the title of my book, The Sense of Theatrical Flair. Your analysis is a little too broad and a little too narrow at the same time. So, starting with the former, much of the decline, as you call it, in ratings and revenue is temporary. So many liberal, progressives, left of center people felt such a punch to the gut by Trump's victory that they're just checking out. And the audience will return once Trump inevitably has some scandals, some failures, some lunatic behavior, the likes of which we saw during his first term. Second, American culture is undergoing a series of degradations, most of which is an intellectual degradation, a consequence of which is journalistic decline. So adding to your analysis, we could talk about how 2/3 of newspapers have shut down since the year 2000. Over half of radio stations have shut down. Americans, fewer and fewer of them, are even consuming the news. They're no longer interested in debate. They're no longer exercising a civic responsibility. So the one thing on which I agree with you entirely is Fox News's success is because it's something of a pravda for Trump voters. And you're correct, that's not going to last either, because once Trump takes an exit from the stage, where are those people going to go?
Well, they'll stay. I mean, Vance is Trump light. So MSNBC and CNN's numbers were never, ever strong in the last 15 years. They're always marginal numbers. So even if their audience comes back, they're coming back to mediocrity. All right? I did it for more than 20 years on Fox. Those people never came close to me. All right? Ever. In any way, at any time. We wiped them out 5-6 to 1, and it never got closer. So now, with corporations cutting ties with MSNBC, they're not coming back anywhere. You're not going to be able to find them. That's how bad that is. CNN, I don't know what they're going to do, because even when there was a hope that Kamala Harris would win, CNN's numbers were terrible. So let's turn our attention to the big three networks. They're all in the morning below 2 million. They used to do 5-6 million. Late night comics barely get 2 million. Carson did 9 million. So you've got to see that the eyeballs are not there. And I don't believe they're coming back. I disagree with you on that.
Some will come back, not all, because it's part of a larger cultural trend in which fewer and fewer people have any trust in traditional media.
Why is that? Why don't they trust it?
Why don't they trust the traditional media? Well,
Yeah.
First of all, most don't even pay attention to it. I mean, the rates of civic political knowledge in this country are awful. But second, they don't trust it because there were a series of mistakes. You're going to say liberal bias, but things like helping the Bush administration sell an invasion of Iraq, for which the Washington Post and New York Times felt compelled to apologize. Missing.
Yeah, but that was those mistakes. I was there. Those mistakes were honest mistakes because you were getting information from a guy like Colin Powell, the Secretary of State, all right, that Saddam Hussein was peddling weapons of mass destruction, had them. So they were honest. When you see an interview that 60 Minutes does with Kamala Harris, okay, and then you see a promo that's totally different, and then you ask politely to see the transcript of what Ms. Harris actually said. This is right in the middle of a campaign. And CBS has blanked you with the middle finger. You can't recover from that. CBS is not going to recover from that.
Part of this bill is a cycle in which, for decades and decades, right-wing commentators and journalists have clutched their pearls, whining and pleading that the so-called liberal media is biased against them. And it has an indoctrination effect in which now you have half of the politically engaged public unwilling to believe anything they see on so-called mainstream media.
That's a good
So
point.
they flock to the.
There has been indoctrination, but the indoctrination was based on facts. So in 1996, when the Fox News Channel started, the business plan was simple: that the New York Times, the Washington Post, the three networks, CNN, did not give traditional conservative people access. They wouldn't book guests. They wouldn't even consider their point of view. And so Fox said, we're gonna be the opposite. We're gonna give traditional conservatives access. We're not gonna ban lefty. I had just as many liberals on the O'Reilly Factor as conservatives because I like the joust. I like to do that. Now Fox, unfortunately, has gone away from that, and it's choir practice. But we made that network based on giving everybody access in it, because there was a wall put up by the left-wing media. You know that, David. If you did any research at all on the New York Times or the Washington Post, the LA Times, it's a wall. You can't get through. And traditional conservative Americans resented that, and still to this day resent it.
I think that you're overrating that effect. I mean, William F. Buckley wrote regularly for the New York Times. In
That was
addition
a
to his own
different era.
magazine.
That's a 50s
William
and 60s.
Safire was a columnist with the New
Again,
York
way
Times.
back. Dinosaur
Okay, but they
time.
always featured, right? And I just gave you an example where they helped the Bush administration sell, honest mistake or not, the invasion of Iraq. In 2016, the New York Times top story, they ran more articles about Hillary Clinton's emails than anything else.
But it was
So
a
I
big
think you're
story.
overrating the liberal bias aspect of it, and you're overlooking that everything you're accusing the mainstream media of committing, right-wing media is doubly guilty of doing.
Not when I was there, it wasn't. I mean, I really went out of my way to present all sides of the equation, to the extent that we had paid contributors to come on and present the left-wing side. Let's go forward. Let's look forward. My hypothesis is that the left-wing media has been damaged beyond redemption. You disagree, and I respect that disagreement, because a year from now we'll have you back and we'll see, whether they come back or anything. But say I'm right, as I am 90% of the time, I think that now the surge is into the social media, and there's certainly a lot of information there. Unfortunately, a lot of it is phony because there are no standards of behavior on social media. But I don't think that's going to ebb. I think that'll even become more prominent. Am I wrong?
I absolutely agree with you on that point, and that's indicative of a certain cultural decline. We don't have intellectuals anymore. We have influencers. So it was a major discussion point during the campaign if Harris would appear with Joe Rogan, which is like if in the 80s the biggest topic of conversation was whether or not Reagan would give an interview to Sam Kinison. There's an absurdity to it. However, I would correct
Rogan's
you
a powerful guy. Rogan
exactly,
is a
that's what
powerful
I'm
guy.
saying.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But I would correct you on one point. I mean, I watched your show routinely throughout the Bush years on Fox, and you did often have liberal, progressive guests. But look at the analysis you offered at the top of the program. You essentially dismissed all of Harris's voters, tens of millions of people, as minorities who are dependent upon entitlements, or
I didn't
coastal
dismiss them.
liberals who are indoctrinated by their teachers and professors.
I contextualized it. I didn't dismiss them. Are you going to really argue, based on all the data that I'm sure you have assembled, that poor urban residents of this country don't lean left because of the entitlement system? Are you going to argue that's not true?
I wouldn't argue that it isn't true that they lean left. First of all, poor people
No,
vote
no.
in very
They
low
lean left
numbers.
for a reason. The
First of all,
reason
poor
is the
people-
Democratic Party is the party of entitlement. That's why they lean left.
There are a variety of reasons why they lean left, but the main point is poor people vote in lower numbers than every other income group, as you know. So that's not a major part of the
It is in New
Democratic
York.
appeal and coalition.
The only reason that progressives control New York is because of New York City minority voters. That's the only reason. If you look
Right,
at the
but you
last gubernatorial vote, it's the only
But
reason.
you're saying minorities vote Democrat only because they're dependent
I didn't
upon
say-
entitlements.
I didn't use the word only. I said
That was the implication.
Well, fine. You can take any implication you want. That's the driver. And in New England, the driver is that it's almost impossible for a traditional conservative to get hired as a teacher in the entire area. So what do you think the kids are gonna come out? Last word. I'll give you the last word.
Yes. My point is that you've dismissed and disparaged tens of millions of Democratic voters as people dependent upon entitlements, or if they're not dependent upon entitlements, they were indoctrinated by the educational system. And that's the kind of narrow, absolutist thinking that pollutes our media and degrades our discourse.
I totally disagree. My job isn't to be politically correct. My job is to tell the truth. And what I told the audience at the top is the truth. But I respect your dissent. That's what makes this country great. We kick it around. Now everybody knows what you think, and everybody knows what I think, and they can make their own decision. And if the network media were like that, it would have 5 times as many viewers, David. Thanks
On
for
that, I agree.
Thanks for taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Smart life. You want to live to be 100? I do not. Okay? I don't want to ever be dependent on anybody. So as long as I'm healthy, as long as I'm functional, good. I'll do the best I can. But when I decline and when you're 100, come on. Okay? So I'm fine with saying adios, amigos. So health.com, they did a study of a bunch of people who are 100 years and older to find out what foods they ate to keep them alive. And here are the foods. Beans, we all know that. Leafy greens, yep, we know that too. Nuts and seeds, I eat cashews, they're good. Seeds, I'm not a big seed fan. Whole grains, okay. Controls blood sugar, very important. Olive oil, excellent. That's a Mediterranean diet. Turmeric, I don't know what that is, but it's some kind of thing you put in your food. Sweet potatoes, love them. Seafood, big on seafood. Okay. Fruit, here's my dilemma. I do eat fruit every day, but I also drink fruit juice, and that's loaded with sugar. So I'm trying to get a line on how much fruit juice I can drink without raising my blood sugar. It's hard. Anybody knows, let me know. And then tea. I drink Japanese tea, Showa. You can get it on the internet. And I have nothing to do with the company. Okay? CHO-WA. It's Japanese tea. Raises your immune system. Tastes awful. Okay? But you got to tough it out. And if it's hot and it's cold outside, it's not so bad. All right. The Reagan movie. Dennis Quaid, Penelope Miller, John Voight. Big hit. Did very, very well. And as you know, I produced a movie, executive producer, along with Ridley Scott, Scott-free, called Killing Reagan, based on my book. And that was very successful. But the Reagan movie did very well. It was released August 30th last summer. And now it's out in DVD for Christmas. Good stuffing stuffer, all right? Now, I did not know this because I didn't see the Reagan movie because I was too busy and I have my own movie and whatever, but I'll watch it. Gene Simmons from Kiss provided some of the music for the Reagan movie. Roll it.
I can't go on. Everything I have is gone. Stormy weather. Since you and I and me and you ain't together. Keeps raining all the time.
Wow, a little Nat King Cole-ish there. Mr. Simmons joins us from Los Angeles. So why did you get involved with this?
When my mother came to America with yours truly, I was 8.5 years old. We are immigrants. We are legal immigrants. And as far as I'm concerned, I was born in the promised land. But let me tell you something. America is the promised land.
Now, you came from Israel? Is that where you came from?
I don't look Swiss, do I?
No, you don't. Not at all.
That's right. That's where I was born, yeah. And came to America and discovered that anything is possible. There are no limits, no nothing. And despite the fact that people agree and disagree and all that stuff, this is still the light and will continue to be the light that shines the world.
Did you admire Ronald Reagan? Did you admire him?
I did. I was much younger, obviously, when he was president. And I knew nothing, almost nothing about the body of politics. But interestingly, in hindsight, it bears noting that the political and pop culture figures of any age were always about the impression, the ability to communicate a feeling. And perhaps that's more important, the power of the personality than what's written on a piece of paper. And now imagine a different president trying to communicate with Gorbachev and literally causing that wall to come down, which resulted in the fall of communism.
Did you take any heat? Because you know how liberal and progressive Hollywood is where you live. You take any heat from contributing to this film? How
do I say this as nicely as I can? I don't give a squat.
No, I know that. But did you take any?
Yes.
You see, but that's wrong. Isn't it wrong?
Well, everybody's entitled to an opinion. It doesn't, it falls off.
Yeah, but they shouldn't take it out. They should try to hurt you because of your opinion. That's what they do out there.
Well, that is probably true. I think it is the bastion of a certain political leaning of the thing, but that's okay. I have
not okay with me, Gene.
John Voight and I hang out. We trade stories and everything else.
Right.
And some people agree with his politics, some not. But everybody gives to charity. Everybody loves children, and so think about the stuff that we agree with instead of the stuff that we don't.
Well, you're bringing a level-headed approach, but there's some malevolent, evil people in the motion picture industry and the music industry to boot that I'll deal with them. You don't have to. You've seen it all. And the music industry has changed so much. Give my audience one big change that you have witnessed in the arc of your career.
Unfortunately, the business model is dead. And new bands don't have a chance, especially rock bands. In a certain way, rock is finally dead. Rock and roll is dead because the freckle-faced kid next door to you, who's a good kid and good family and everything, has become feels entitled to be able to download and file share and get all this music for free.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting that people don't understand this. It's like, so what? You're too rich to care. Why do you care? Well, imagine you work for a living, you write a book, you sell groceries or whatever, and people don't pay you for the work that you put in. Then you understand. Then you say, well, wait a minute. I worked for this. How come I don't get paid? And that's what's happening with new artists. And it breaks my heart because
and they're not rich. They're creative and they're trying to get to a platform where they're self-sustaining, and you can't now because of the internet. Well, very, very fascinating. I'm going to bring you back, and once you start your tour, let us know. We'll take some video of it. We'll bring it back. You're an interesting guy. I've known Simmons for a long time. I never painted my face like Kiss. I have to admit it. I'm much too handsome to do that. See, my theory is these guys had to do that. I don't have to. I want you to have a nice Hanukkah and a very nice celebration on the West Coast. My best to everybody, Gene. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, young man.
Okay, cheers. Los Angeles, I love this story. Listen to this. Los Angeles Times was once the dominant newspaper on the West Coast, all right? It had like 500,000 a day circulation. It's down below 100,000. It's just nobody pays attention to it because it's a far left journal. It's a progressive journal. They don't make any pretense about covering the news fairly. They cover what they want to cover, but if it's not a story that fits in the narrative, they don't even cover it. So it's owned by one guy who's hemorrhaging money. His name is Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. Okay? So he's installing, and I don't know how this is going to work, in the Los Angeles Times newsroom, a so-called bias meter to see if his own reporters and editorial staff are being unfair. And he's using AI to run the bias meter. Now, I don't know whether the readers of the newspaper are going to see that or how they're going to see it, but I've never heard of this before. But a bias meter run by AI being installed in the Los Angeles Times. I'm keeping my eye on that one. Now, why is that necessary? The culture in almost every newsroom in this country on a national level is left, far left. That means if you're a MAGA person or you're pro-life or you're even conservative, you can't work in the newsrooms. You're shunned, isolated, won't get promoted, don't want you there, okay? When you have that kind of peer pressure against you, who's going to walk into that? Now, when I worked at ABC News and CBS News, both of them were liberal when I was there. Peter Jennings, kept a cap on it. Now, nobody knew my political point of view back when I was a correspondent for ABC News. I was a reporter. I didn't put any politics into any story I ever did. None. CBS, same thing. Nobody knew. I got hired at CBS, Dan Rather, because I did well at Channel 2, the local CBS station in New York City. Anyway, Rather wore the liberalism on his sleeve. Everybody knew. Jennings, not so much. They knew he was socially liberal, but he was disciplined, Jennings. But now that's all gone. It's all gone. You have to be left or far left to work in these national news agencies, with the exception of Fox News and Newsmax. Okay? And News Nation, which is, I think, the strongest of the trying to be balanced of all of them. Okay, and I worked there on, Monday you'll see me with Leland Vittert and Wednesday with Cuomo. But they try. But if you're in the network situation, there's no way. And that's the culture. New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Boston Globe, Atlanta Constitution, same thing. Very dangerous for the country. Smart Life. This is another interesting story. So now the average American, all right, has a credit card debt of $10,757. How precise is that? This comes from Wallet Hub. Wallet Hub's pretty good. They do some pretty good research. It's a personal finance website. Wallet Hub, one word. So $10,757 what the average American owes to the credit card companies. Why? Well, greed is one reason. No impulse control. I want it. I'm going to get it. If I can't afford it, I'll just put it. I'll pay the 18% VIG. 18% you pay in these companies. But here's another one. So I walk into a deli on Long Island the other day, and I wanted a ham and cheese sandwich. Ham and Munster cheese with a little bit of mustard on a roll. $14. Are you kidding me? $14. That cost the deli, just in the food, the roll and the ham and cheese and the mustard, cost the deli about $5, maybe $5. They're charging $14. So I'm watching now. Why are they doing this? In the deli, it was 80% urchins, teenagers in the local high schools there. That's who was in the deli. They had all of them had the debit cards. And they're getting anything they want. They don't care what the price is. They're not paying it. Boom, 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 boom. That's why. And their parents have to pay off the debit card. And a lot of these parents are, hey, do whatever you want, Sally. Hey, Sean, get whatever you want. They don't care. And then they get the bill and they can't pay it. That's what's happening here. Smart life. All you have to do is step back before you put that credit card on the little gizmo. Say, do I really need this? Is it worth the $14 for the ham and cheese? I bought the ham and cheese sandwich and I ate it and it was decent. I won't do it again. All right, because that's ridiculous. Smart life. Got to control the spending. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.